during Urban Meyer's heyday there, it just seemed like, this was the best secondary unit in the country in developing in both performance on the field at the collegiate level combined with what was produced in the NFL. It's just ridiculous. Uh, for the entire secondary, we'll focus on the quarterback position. And it just seems in the last, since 2019, there's just been guys out there just not outstanding play at the cornerback position.
No, it's been a letdown for the Buckeyes. And look, they were, as you said, at the top. It's hard to stay at the top, but I think you could put it on a number of different things. I don't know if the talent has been what it was. I don't think the coaching was good enough at that level, and so the Buckeyes are trying to get back there. There's been a renewed focus on landing the right type of cornerbacks for this defense. They've done a good job of that. I think Tim Walton, a guy who played at Ohio State back in the 90s and coached in the NFL, is a good guy for the job. I think year two will be telling. I know a lot of fans were wanting guys out on this defensive staff after just 1 year. I don't think that's fair. I think you need time to work with these players. And I think there's talent there. Look, Denzel Burke, who had a great freshman season, played a lot of last year hurt. We just talked with him this past week. I know fans were aware of the fact that he had a wrist hand surgery that kept him out of game last season, and then he had that cast on there. But he said he also played with an injured shoulder, an injured ankle, and he had to deal with mentally kind of going through all that for the first time and not being able to be out on the field the way he wants to. And that's not just on the field on game days, but on the practice field as much as he wanted to do and things like that. I think he needs to learn, and hopefully last year was a learning experience, how to play through some of those injuries. And you hope nothing is as severe as what he experienced last year, but when he was healthy, or when he was the healthiest, he was still very good last year. It just didn't happen a lot. Then the other cornerback spot, you got a battle between Jordan Hancock, another guy who wasn't healthy last year, missed almost half the season before coming back and never really got into the groove that he was before the season started. And they brought in Davison Igbinosun from Ole Miss, a guy who, as a freshman last year, started in the SEC, has a lot of experience playing college football already. He's 6'2". He looks different than the other corners they have just because of his size, his length. He's a guy who, at least when we've seen it, has been running with the twos, but it would not surprise me at all if he is a starter, maybe opening day, maybe, at some point in the season. But he just brings something different with his size, and I think the experience is helpful. So you've got a three there on cornerbacks that are really interesting. And I think just on talent alone, assuming guys can stay healthier than they were a year ago, you've got a pretty good group there, and it should be able to match up with most receivers you see, throughout the season. So these are why I say they're on paper, it looks like positive movement for Ohio State in terms of the defense.
All right, Pat, we'll finish up with the safety position and your thoughts about the play there, and then projected forward, Jahad Carter, obviously the big addition from Syracuse.
I think this is interesting because as we've seen it thus far, they've got Lathan Ransom playing, they call it the bandit. It's the boundary safety. They've got Josh Proctor, who started last year as the starting bandit before Lathan Ransom took that over, playing the adjuster or the free safety. And then they have Cameron Martinez, who's been in the program, was a dual threat quarterback out of Michigan, a freak athlete, but had to adjust to play defense, has dealt with some injuries. He's been playing that slot corner, the nickel back that Tanner McAllister played last year with the ones. But if you look beyond that first group, you've got Jahad Carter, who you mentioned, a guy transferred from Syracuse, has a lot of talent. We expect to compete for that nickel spot. He's bigger than both Tanner McAllister, who played it last year, or Cameron Martinez. So he gives something a little different to that spot. But we've been told that he's repped it at all the different safety spots. It'll be interesting to see where he lands. And then Sonny Styles is a guy that I think everyone is aware of at this point, who's kind of followed Ohio State, a local kid, 5-star kid, reclassified to be on the team last year, should be just enrolling this past January. To me, this is a guy that they need to find a role for. And, right now he's working at the bandit position behind Lathan Ransom. But I expect him to have a much bigger role than just being a secondary rotation guy. I think he's too talented, too athletic. He's just a good player. I watched him in high school a few times. You saw last year in the Georgia game, early in that game, there was a game plan for him to guard Washington, the tight end from Georgia, until he got hurt. Darnell Washington, I believe. And had he stayed in the game, it would have been interesting to see how many reps how many snaps Sonny Styles played, and I imagine it would have been quite a bit. So that's a guy they trusted in that type of important role in the biggest game of the season. Kai Stokes is another guy in there. He's been with the twos behind Josh Proctor. So right now, I think things look one way with the safety position. I think maybe by the beginning, end of fall camp, beginning of the season, it may look different. Now, maybe all these guys hold off the guys behind them and they maintain those positions. And I think that's good competition. But to me, he brought Jihad Carter here for a reason. I think he needs to be on the field. He's only got 1 year left of eligibility. Sonny Styles, to me, needs to be on the field. And so I think there needs to be some decisions made. And obviously these guys are watching every day in practice. We don't get to see everything. So, I expect the coaches to play the guys that best deserve to be on the field. But it's also spring ball. They can experiment with some different things. But again, I think this is a position you can't get wrong, frankly, because we saw too many mistakes last year at the safety spots, I should say, and it cost the Buckeyes at times. So for me, you've got to get your best guys on the field. Right now, I think Ohio State is working through some of who are those best guys during spring practice.